Dogs seemingly have a monopoly on the film industry. Think of all the great pet movies and you have Homeward Bound, Air Bud, Benji, and cats have... However, what cats have that dogs don't is a surrealistic dark comedy about cats exploring life, death, religion, and nihilism. Dogs tried doing that one, and you fucked it up. So today we get to look at one of my favorite shorts, Cat Soup. So Cat Soup started off as a short manga called Nekojiru created by Chiyomi Hashiguchi. It followed the lives of sibling cats Nyako and Nyata. It looks like a very childish and cute manga until it isn't. Despite their drastic differences, I think understanding the manga is important in interpreting Cat Soup. The main takeaway from the manga is the theme of nihilism, the cynical idea that nothing really matters in life. This is why all the cruel murders are juxtaposed with blank stares from the cats. They give no reaction because to them, it doesn't matter. Hashiguchi herself had very similar feelings. According to her friends, she always spoke her mind and was very blunt to the point of being rude. She also felt like an outcast from society, detesting other people because she thought they were disingenuous. She would also frequently say she didn't fear death. Unfortunately, in 1998, she was found dead after committing suicide at the age of 31. This would end up leaving a very ominous mark on her work. A lot of her stories were based on bizarre dreams she had. This, along with her personality, seemingly gives us a glimpse into how she viewed life. It's a very dark and cynical perspective. Cat Soup would be created as a celebration and even reinterpretation of her work. The film opens up with a shot of Nyata playing the tub. Now don't get too comfortable because he fucking drowns in it. I know we're only like 5 seconds in, but we've already reached a heavily debated point in the movie, and that's whether he's dead or not. Like most things in this movie, there's no concrete evidence to confirm either side. Personally, I think he does die as it fits with the themes of mortality pretty well. However, you could also argue that his survival coincides well with the idea of life and death. The opening is great as it establishes how layered scenes can be and how it juxtaposes cuteness with cruelty. We cut the perspective shots of what's possibly a Grim Reaper as it reaches Nyata's older sister, Nyako, as she slowly dies. This sequence begins by focusing on a flower. The flower becomes a recurring symbol throughout the movie, mainly representing life. Nyata manages to get out of the tub, only to find out that no one seems to notice him, evidence to suggest that he's dead. He notices his sister being taken away and chases after them. During his chase, he deflates someone. This scene confused many viewers, including myself initially. I believe this references Hashiguchi's apathy towards other people. The cat deflates because it's fake. The other cats choose to ignore what is clearly in front of them. Eventually, he catches up to them and has a tug-of-war to get her back. And then... this sequence is actually one of the few events directly adapted from the manga. The Reaper also makes reference to the flower. Later on, we learn that this is where he hides his half of the soul. Nyako is pronounced dead until her brother comes back to give her the half soul he has. She's revived but has also suffered brain damage. She'll remain this way for most of the movie. They proceed with life as usual, eventually going to a circus. The circus is another event adapted from the manga, becoming one of my favorite scenes in this movie. It's called the Big Whale Circus, the whale being an important symbol. You see, the circus is run by the Great Wizard. This universe's representation of God, and a cynical one at that. Given the religious tones, we can assume the whale is a reference to the story of Jonah, who was forced into a whale for defying God. The moral of that story is that we are all at the mercy of God's will. Nothing we do can change that. It's a pretty nihilistic message for something that's in the Bible of all places. So for his first act, he wows the audience by slicing a woman apart and then putting her back together. Now, to the surprise of no one, Hashiguchi is pretty apathetic towards religion as well. With that in mind, I think this scene is a criticism of some events in the Bible, specifically miracles. Jesus gained a following as the Son of God by performing miracles for people, similarly wowing spectators. However, since God is the one in control, he's also the one giving these people ailments. In a way, he's creating the problem while also selling the solution. I'm gonna say this right now, these are not my ideas, I am just the messenger of what I think this movie is trying to say. He continued with creating more objects from thin air, the fish being a Christian symbol, the gold elephant being a Hindu symbol, and the chair being a chair. The next act is a giant chicken, and honestly I have no idea what this is supposed to symbolize. However, it is filled with the air the wizard used to create objects, and these people seem to be trying to steal it. Since these people are defying God, he makes the rational decision to fucking flood the whole world. Now, you may be thinking, oh, this is the story of Noah, and you'd be wrong. Weirdly enough, this is the only point the director decides to be confirmed.
これもまた水で、別にノアの箱舟ではないんですけれども、ここでいきなりなぜ船で助かるんですかというところも、結局2人がこれはリアルな世界に生きていないからでしょうかねと、逃げちゃう、答え方もよくするのですが。
Even without the Noah symbolism, you still have a lot to dissect. The mechanical butterfly, for instance, could be a comment on how new generations stray away from the natural in favor of the industrial. More on that later. We're also shown this bizarre circle of life where the drowned body of a pregnant woman is taken by some bird, fed to her kids, defecated out of them, and becomes a tree. Checkmate, Lion King. There's also a pig on the boat, and you're probably wondering who he is. One thing you should know is that pigs are constantly abused in the cat soup universe, both verbally and physically. Their treatment is a commentary on the racial divide in Japan. It's mostly done in the show than in the movie. The one constant though is pigs being made to eat each other. Yup. Alright, that fucked up imagery aside, pigs in the movie are used to show the resource depletion by people. The pig is marked by its consumable parts. People only see animals as products to consume. Once God replaces the rain with drought, the cats use the pig as transportation. They beat the pig whenever it gets exhausted, and eventually it just dies. And they continue beating him. With his dying breath, he bites up Nyata's hand. They go get it fixed at some random lady's house who partakes in some questionable practices. We only have small bits of information on this scene. Apparently, screenplay writer Masaki Yuasa described her to the animation team as a nice woman who's not liked because of her profession. The end result confused the team as well.
いい人なんで本当はって言っても、かなり湯浅君の提示したイメージはグロだったので、そんなバカなと、僕たちは思っていたのですが、でもそれはそれとして、ニアッタを助けてくれてよかったよなと。
Honestly, I think the scene is as simple as Yuasa described it. A person outcasted for her way of life. Kind of reminds you of someone we know. The next sequence has the two cats arriving at a man's doorstep where he invites them in for a meal. This segment most resembles the story of Hansel and Gretel, with two children being invited with the promise of food, tricked into being cooked, but make it out alive while also punishing their attacker. I'm not sure how popular this fairy tale is in Japan, so I looked at it from a more religious angle. The man represents the devil, with his house containing many evil symbols. The first one is this crow wearing some gaudy jewelry representing vanity, one of the 7 deadly sins. The hallway scene here is loaded with imagery. The cheese, along with just the general idea of food in the sequence, represents gluttony. The pregnant woman with her breasts exposed possibly represents lust. Strangely enough, we also see the chicken again. Based on my interpretation, the chicken was temptation for the common people. If there's anyone most well known for temptation, it's the devil. The brain dissection here probably represents the pursuit of knowledge, specifically science, which has always conflicted with the beliefs of religion. This eye is either a malicious depiction of the all-seeing God, or a fitting image of the devil. You decide. As for this dissected person, it might just be shock value, which is still fitting for the devil's home. The next scene has them at a dinner table where they cook a bird in a very cruel way. Another comment on how cruel we are to our own resources. After they've had their meal, the devil tries to cook them, and then this happens. It's a good thing I don't gotta worry about monetization because, yeah, I really want to make a Disney connection, but I know nothing's there. Anyways, Nyata fucks this guy up and even reveals he's a robot. So I know a lot just happened right there, but we're gonna move on because I got nothing. And neither do the people who made it.
なんでロボットなのと、さらによくわからなくなっちゃったんですけども、これは本当に、なんて言うんでしょうね、イメージをつなげていったらこうなっちゃったんですよというところで。
So now we get to the water elephant segment, which seems to be made simply because Yuasa likes creating water animals in his movies.
この水の像というのは、湯浅くんの、これは本当オリジナルですね。彼は何かこういうイメージのものが好きらしくて。
This is a good point to bring up now that cat soup and other surreal films like it aren't above the idea of having fun or being entertaining. It's easy to believe that films have deep meaning within each frame or something, but honestly, I could be way off my own interpretations, and that's completely fine. These films are made to be bizarre and ambiguous so that your brain can soak it in and make their own connections. Each experience is unique to the person who sees it, and that's why it's so fascinating for me. Anyways, I hope you didn't get too attached to the elephant while I talked, because he fucking dies too.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Okay, so I know I said the circus was my favorite scene in this movie, but never mind that this is the one. I mean, just look at how bizarre and cool everything looks. There is creativity oozing with each scene. However, this is also the most sentimental and eerie portion of the movie. It begins with God eating the earth. He slices it and one half rolls away. It gets stuck in a machine that controls the universe's time. Time is now frozen and Nyata begins to interact with the environment. We see the same imagery of the whale from the circus, once again emphasizing that God has control over us, specifically control over fate and time. We come across another event frozen in time, a woman's attempt at suicide. You probably don't need a reminder for this connection. In his attempt to get his food back, he puts the gears in motion and fast forwards time. This causes everyone to grow old. He ends up missing and makes everything go backwards. Initially, we see the obvious of people becoming younger and evolution going backwards. However, the movie takes a dark turn by showing us a crash in reverse, one of the victims being a woman and her child. We also see events of war, suicide, terrorism all being erased. This is all done to show that time inevitably causes tragedy. The final reverse shot is of a meteor hitting Earth, causing the end of humanity. By controlling time, God also controls our fate. He can allow us advancements as a species and allow us to grow old, but he also allows tragedy and destruction to run rampant. Thanks to time, destruction of this world is inevitable. This is why God is fixated on eating it rather than helping sustain the life on it. We're now back to the boat and arrive at a place that is purely mechanical. A commentary on how our world is becoming more industrialized and automated, which still rings true to this day. Given the flood and the rustic scenery, this could be taking place near the world's end. When we have long disappeared, this is the kind of world we'll be leaving behind. We finally come across this flower with the same machine butterfly we saw before. Nyata uses it to fully revive his sister. So now life is back to usual and we have a happy ending, right? Well, during the final scene, Nyata goes to the bathroom where we see a poster of the whale again. In a very sinister way, God is reminding us he is still in control. Shortly after, the family begins to disappear. We know this is God's doing because the same thing happens in the manga. Nyata's journey to save his sister's soul was futile. None of it really mattered in the end. You can't bring people back from the dead. The film concludes with a very chilling credit sequence. Taken from the perspective of the father, we hear a music box rewinding and a video of his family playing alongside it. It's a man grieving over the loss of his children. He constantly rewinds the music box so that he can stay in that simpler time. Cat Soup takes a very cynical approach at the concepts of fate, time, and grief. Things are all fated to die out one day. Everything is at the mercy of a higher being's plan. Any attempt at changing this is futile. This not only applies to people, but the world in general. We've strayed far from the natural to the industrial. We take advantage of anything we can. We may want to reverse time and find solace in living in the past, but life continues to move forward. Cat Soup tells us that life is bizarre, cruel, and unexpected. Honestly, a perfect representation of Hachiguchi's work. So, what are your thoughts on Cat Soup? Okay.